Okay, thank you. So the question that I've got is, how can we improve communication, and will that help you with your responsibility? So, okay, so I've got a minute, have I? Oh, 2 minutes. Right, okay. So there's lots that we need to communicate about, isn't there? So there's communication in between each person and their support team and anyone who's involved in supporting them every day. So that's an area we can improve. And I've had lots of discussion with our people that run day activities and day services about how their communication and the communication with our social work teams could improve significantly in terms of planning around people, because one of the things that they've struggled to understand is that their job is to help the people that they support to maximise the opportunities that they have in their life, but also to be able to live more independently. So there's something about how the communication can be improved at that very, very close level. And of course, for me, because I spend most of my time talking to elected members and people like that, and the key bosses at the council or the key bosses in the NHS like Simon and Lisa. And what we can do there is try and give the narrative or tell the stories that are really important in terms of what we're trying to do together to improve our services for people with disabilities. So again, communication at that high level is equally important in terms of what the big issues are. And of course, one of the real opportunities for me in coming here today is to hear from you directly what you see as the big issues and the number one concerns that you have, so that I'm then able to share that with people across our local system, but also to make sure that the decision makers, the elected members, know exactly what's going on. Thank you.
Whatever you like.
I've got the mic. So the question is, if we make promises today, how will that be communicated to people not here? So hopefully all of us will now go back and speak to the people we work with, people we live with, the people we socialise with, and tell them about today. So tell them about what we've discussed, tell them about the challenges people face, and also some of the good things that are happening in health and care, as well as the challenges. I'm hoping that there will be some write-up from the end of today that can be shared with people in an accessible format. But also I think, just borrowing from the supplementary, the end to Graham's question about what's our responsibility. I see my responsibility as a director within NHS Cheshire and Merseyside as being an ally to the people in this room. I don't have your lived experience, but I do have a position in which I can make your voices heard. I can put your agenda in front of NHS Cheshire and Merseyside's board. And with Lisa and Pauline and others within the Transforming Care team, and a number of other people in the room, we can really push the things that we need to be doing. Annual health checks, good access to services, but also have those conversations, as we said, with people like Graham and local authorities and others who have access to the other things that impact your life. So if we say we're going to do something today, we need to go back out, share that with people to make sure that everybody's aware of it, and we can come back in a few months' time and say, did we do it? And if we didn't, what stopped us? And if we did, what was the outcome of that, and was it a success?
5, 4, 3, 2.
Right?
Okay, so my question is that we do not feel safe in the NHS. What can we do to change that? So if it is that you feel unsafe in the NHS, we need to have those conversations. So each individual who maybe doesn't feel safe, that they need to be able to have that conversation with the individuals, either providing the support or to speak to a support person that could help, so that maybe advocate on your behalf. I think at the moment, obviously with Edenfield and Causton Park, it has caused, you know, a lot of people to be very, very scared and very worried in terms of NHS services. And I think, you know, we're fortunate across Cheshire and Merseyside that we have a really strong integrated care board, and obviously we've got Simon and Graham in there. So we've got a high level of support, and I can see a number of practitioners here who have come today to hear what you guys have got to say, and they're from our community teams, our autism teams, and other support agencies. So I think if people are not feeling safe, I think that's understandable given what we're seeing on the news and the media, and the videos we've seen of our peers and people's loved ones being treated as they have been in hospital. But I think the key message for me is that if you do feel unsafe, speak to somebody that you trust to say, I don't feel safe, what can we do? And always ask for help, because the last thing we would want within the NHS is for anybody to feel that they don't want to access or attend a clinic or a service because they don't feel safe. And the NHS and the ICB need to promote that for individuals who are...
Thank you very much. I've got a very long memory. Oh gosh, this was the bit I really was very worried about. So, beans in your bath or curry in your hat? How do you answer that? I am a big fan of beans, but I've never had a bath with beans. And I think if I did have a bath with beans, I'd certainly be looking for them to be warmed up considerably. I can't imagine anything worse than cold beans. Oh, yeah, might be a bit slippy, the butter beans, but we'll go with that. Yeah, so I think, yeah, beans in your bath as long as they're warmed up. And maybe actually you could mix the two, because I've always liked a bit of curry and beans as well. So it spices them up, yeah. So curry and beans in the bath maybe. And I wonder whether actually I could mix the hat in and perhaps wear my hat in the bath as well at the same time. So yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, I'll go for that one. Thank you for the question.
One of the hardest questions, what you've got to give out. He's looking at it and saying, don't want to do that.
No contest.
Liverpool or Everton? This could be, is there a clear exit here? If they were playing in my garden, I'd shut the curtains for both of them, sorry. And that's slightly controversial because I don't like either of them as football teams. So I'm really sorry. I think, so in terms of, if I tried to adopt a neutral stance, which is very difficult, in regard to the football club, it's odd because I absolutely love Liverpool as a city.
Yes.
And I love the people of Liverpool. It's just, I don't support your football clubs, and I'm very sorry about that. And I never have since the age of 6. So that's all I have to say. I think, yeah. I don't think who my team is on the question here. I was just to comment whether it's Liverpool or Everton. I don't think I was. There is no supplementary on here. Except Liverpool and Everton hate them with a passion at the end of the East Lancs Road.
Well, I've got a not fun question. I've got a serious question. I would have liked to do the beans question, but anyway. So the question I've got, and this is probably one better for Graham, and you might want to answer this one. So how will the new system help us get social care support? No?
Social care reform. Everybody has an assessment.
All right. Swap questions. Take another one. Take another.
Stop the clock and let.
Don't read it.
Oh,
Do you want to say that question?
Thank you. So how can we help you to remove the barriers so we can get on with it?
Liverpool or Everton?
I mean, I'd go for the Liverpool or Everton question. I think these feel a bit tricky. So how can we help you? How can we get on with it? So are we talking about getting on with people having the best lives in terms of individuals that are here? So yeah, absolutely. I think removing the barrier is people having their own voice and being able to say how they feel, and share that with people who maybe are decision makers. And we've talked about that before, haven't we, around people who make decisions but don't always listen to the individual's wishes and feelings. So I think to removing the barriers is having events like this where you've got ourselves, but you've also got lots of people who are working the providers in our trusts, and them listening to what's being said today will hopefully and naturally enable those barriers to be dropped, because people have a better understanding of what individuals want. And I think one of the key messages for me around some of the barriers was the young lady that talked about having 7 social workers. And you know, that for me was a message that resonated, and something that really we need to think a lot better about, because people don't have time to be wondering who their support is when they just want to live their life and live the life that they would choose. So I think events like this definitely help the barriers.
Thank you very much. Now about those beans. Okay. Now I think so. The question was, how will the new system help us get social care support? And I suppose by the new system, what we're talking about there is integrated care systems, isn't it? I suppose in the largest context, then we've got a really big organisation working across the whole of Cheshire and Merseyside, and that enables that organisation, or allows that organisation to look across the whole area, and first of all to make sure that things are similar in all of the 9 local authorities that work across that Cheshire and Merseyside system. And the other key thing that is of consideration for the integrated care system is making sure that there's a really strong focus on health inequality and the steps that all of our organisations need to do to deal with health inequalities. So a number of people talked earlier on about access to their doctor and how they struggle to get appointments. That would be an issue that could be looked at across the whole of Cheshire and Merseyside in quite a coordinated sort of way. Similarly, if we think about things like health checks and the fact that we don't have enough health checks happening in all of those areas. Again, the comparison across the whole area enables all of us as organisations working together in an integrated way to plan for and make those sorts of changes. So for me, at the bottom of what we're being asked to do is to integrate. And what does that really mean? Well, I think it's about working together at a very close level, very locally, but also across the whole patch. Thank you.
So the question is, how can you help us be creative with our support? I'm going to tell you about Richard. Richard, on Friday afternoon, I was doing a tour of Theakston's Brewery in Massam. And Richard was on the tour. And Richard was his key worker. And Richard was living his best life that afternoon. He was in one of his favourite places in the world. He was doing what he wanted to do, and he was socialising with the people in the pub afterwards. And Richard, in the last year or so, has been on a variety of holidays. We sat chatting to him. And really, it's back to the question that Lisa answered. How do we get out of the way? How do we enable people to live their best lives? How do we be less paternalistic around how we operate our services and more enabling and encouraging independence? And we can do that through things like personal health budgets, direct payments, but also in that space allowing people to live the lives that they want, but with the support around them. So I think when we deal with many of the issues around people with learning disabilities and autism, we are dealing with people who are in some very difficult situations and in some situations in care settings that none of us would really want to be in, because they're usually secure settings or inpatient settings or whatever. The message therefore is, in terms of being creative with our support, is how do you stop people getting into such situations, and how do you make sure there's community support, family support, self-advocacy, and we let people be a bit more like Richard.
Right, tent or hotel? This is an absolute no-brainer. Anyone that knows me knows I don't do tenting at all. So, without a doubt, no, it would have to be a hotel. And ideally, it would be a hotel where there's some live music, there's a disco, and there's only me on the dance floor, and I'm doing my shapes. It's my disco. Sue's laughing because she knows. She knows I've got form for that. But it'd also have to have a spa there. And if you could take my dog, that would be good. But yeah, I don't like tents. I don't like the wetness. I don't like the slugs. Or anything like that. It's a no. And I can't wash my hair if I'm tenting. And then I look like I've been dragged backwards by a head through a hedge. So yeah. I've got 1 more minute. Yeah. Oh, I don't have to say anymore.
Stop.
Yeah, there you go. See, I've stopped the clock.
Oh, we're going to go through all these questions, I think.
No, that's an awful one to give me. Marmite, question mark. I don't know about anybody else, but I absolutely hate Marmite. Just the smell of it, the look of it, everything about it is just terrible. I honestly can't say much more about Marmite other than that. It's just Marmite.
I love it. I love it.
Perhaps you should say why you like Marmite.
Why I like Marmite is the spirit of bread and
I just can't understand where you're coming from, Paddy, so perhaps I should listen as to why Marmite is good.
Marmite is very good. It's good for your body and it's good for anything else, health and all that. That's what it is. And it's good to drink as well. That's what it is. Right?
So the question is, how can we make digital or online health services accessible? You're probably asking the wrong person, because I sometimes find it difficult to negotiate some of the websites that health and care services put up for people, because they're not particularly accessible. And when you do find the accessibility button, it's usually hidden in the top corner or the bottom corner. It doesn't necessarily work and speak to you. And a lot of people aren't digitally literate. If people don't have a reading age that is, I think the average reading age in the country is, in parts of the northwest, is sort of 7 years old. So some of the language we use anyway in some of those platforms isn't necessarily accessible. So basically, how do you deal with that? Well, you have to have people who have sensory difficulties, learning disabilities, etc., involved in the design of those digital spaces. So we can understand how they are developed and built. We need to reduce the number of clicks you need to get to some of the services, but also you need to have people available to help you explain what's on there as well, because it's all very well saying it's on our website. You have to understand what it's telling you. So when we're looking at this in terms of the delivery of digital services to people, there is an expectation the key workers, the people who work with you, will have a level of digital literacy, will be able to have shared care records, which starts to reduce some of those issues about telling your the story twice or 3 times or more. But they should be able to help you interpret that information or put you in touch with services that can help you interpret that information. So it's back to the key thing, hearing from people.
Lynn, stop. Lynn, please stop. Simon, you can carry on though.
I've lost my train of thought, it's okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
One more.
Oh, no, at least then what's that?
One more.
There's 2 in there, can I choose?
You can choose, there's 2 in there.
There's 3 in
The 3 there.
No, it's just, I'll read it as it says. It says, how are we work together in our system? Which I think we've already...
I think it's how do we work together in our system, I think.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
People with learning disabilities are going to work with you and you work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Graham's talked very much about the ICS, hasn't he, and how that work, people are working together in that sense. But I think we've also talked about through the day and whilst we've been sat here around how we work together in our system in terms of our self-advocacy groups, our experts by experience who work with, certainly with myself, when we're doing our Transforming Care meetings and the work that we're doing, getting the information through in terms of what's important to people, how do we need to change things. So I think that's how we're certainly working together in Cheshire and Mersey. And I think that because of the operational board and also the strategic board, we have self-advocates on those boards. Jenny attends, and that's really important because, as you'll all know, get a group of professionals in a room together and they can change the world, but it's not the world that you guys are looking for. And that's why it's so important that, that the systems together work with individuals, so we know that what we're proposing or what seems to be the right thing to do is actually what you guys want and what will make your life, better and more enjoyable. So that's certainly one of those things. But I think as well, for me, because myself and Simon have been involved in the Safe and Wellbeing reviews, and again,
Want to say something?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jenny and Paddy. Job well done.